Terraria is a popular 2D game made out of pixels, but what if it doesn't have to be? What if we could make a 3D rendition of the Terraria world through illustrations? And not a 3D game, because I'm not a game designer, I'm a digital artist. Welcome to the first part of Illustrating the Terraria world, where I'll be illustrating every single biome that can be found in a regular Terraria world. Forests, evil biomes, caves, the depths of the underworld, all of it, with each of their own unique characteristics. I'm jpallgraphic, and let's get started. In today's part, we'll be illustrating the forest biome in 3 chapters. The general landscape, the forest, with the forest trees and living trees, and the hills. Let's start off with the general landscape. This artwork will showcase what the forest biome might look like when we turn this 2D view into a 3D view. If we look at the forest biome in Terraria, it's pretty simple. The foreground consists of the ground, the forest trees, plants, and rocks. As for the background, there are many variants, but the main ones that I picked were these 2. The first one is large lake in a forest with a distant house and snowy mountains. The second one is hills with a plateau. And yes, that's what they're called in the Terraria wiki. Let's try to combine these 2 backgrounds together. First things first, the sketch. I sketched the basic form and placement of significant elements in the artwork, like the lake, trees, sunflowers, and rest of the land formations. Then, I started coloring the entire landscape in grayscale. As you can see, I incorporated the elements from the 2 backgrounds that I have previously mentioned into the artwork. And with that, enter depth. Depth in art refers to the perceived distance between the background and the foreground of a composition, utilizing real-life elements such as atmospheric fog and contrast to add a more 3D feel to an artwork. You can already see it in display, where parts of the landscape further away becomes incorporated with the atmosphere, causing the landscape to feel distant and blend in with the sky. This will become more prominent as we develop the landscape. Anyway, after grayscaling, I started to add some detail. Some flowers on the ground, grass, separated the plateaus from the rest of the background, which I also detailed. Then I dealt with the mountains, which was basically me just adding a vanilla flavored snow cap on the top, and added more trees, until the left side of the artwork was totally populated with them. It's like there's a forest over there, which is totally not where the second artwork will reside. Anyway, with most of the elements in place, I added the base colors to each part of the artwork. Unfortunately, I removed the flower patches, mainly because I had other plans for this part of the ground. And with that, I started what I would like to call the 5,000 strokes that I etched onto the ground, because I wanted some tall grass, but now I totally regret it because this part of the ground will have a simple and hassle-free grass design. Totally hassle-free, totally did not take me 2 hours to add all of them. I added some flowers next, incorporated with the tall grass. After that, I dealt with the canopies of our 3D looking but not 3D Terraria trees by adding some lighting. I could imagine this scene to be happening after the sunrise, where the sun is bright enough yet still emitting that warm glow throughout the atmosphere and onto the landscape. Basically, the direct light of the sun will come from here, from right to left. And speaking of lighting, sunlit grass, sunlit trees. Next, tree bark, and more tree related stuff. Trunk lighting, cast shadows, that sort of stuff. At the same time, I detailed the flowers in the foreground, inspired both from real life and Terraria. Let's take this in for a moment. A lot of things are coming together, and so far, we had a relatively organized procedure. But now, it's time for the messy part, where I add details here and there until it looks good enough. Want to see me do it? Well then, 1. Sky. I detailed it like a sunrise sky. 2. Trees. See the spot of land over here? It's missing some trees. 3. Mountains. Vanilla frosting isn't enough. Let's complete it with some shadows, lighting, and color variations. 4. The forest plateaus. They've been looking bland for way too long, so it's time to give them some well-deserved sunlight. Now that's what I call a background. And you may be wondering, where did the sky go? Well, it needs to look a bit more dramatic. Now that's a sunrise. 6. Clouds. The sky feels way too empty. A few clouds will help with that. 7. Reflection. The lake definitely needs a reflection, because they happen in real life, and in my opinion, reflections on bodies of water make the scenery look more dramatic, grand. And lastly, 8. Refinements and additions. This artwork showcases what the forest biome might look like, specifically with a scenic view, the background being the main focus point. Going back to depth, the background represents it pretty well, where it seems more faded away, and a contrast not so intense, compared to the foreground. An early morning view, a first glance of a 3D Terraria world. More realistic, more dramatic. The start of a series that hopefully I will finish eventually. Anyway, this artwork will portray what an actual forest biome might look like. Trees dotted around, following the style of Terraria. For the sketch, the idea is to have a basic view of the forest, with the middle of the artwork featuring the living trees, standing tall and rising high above the normal forest trees. Then on the ground, we will have the player, which will have its design inspired by the default Terraria character, looking at the beautiful scenery. Seems simple enough. I colored them in grayscale. I populated the sides of the artwork with trees, creating a dense forest that surrounds the observer. Meanwhile, the middle will reveal the massive living wood trees in the distance. I also added some extra details on the ground, like some mushrooms, and a log inspired from one of Terraria's environmental elements. Now, with most of the basic elements set, I started detailing the ground. It's more or less going to be a typical forest ground you would see in real life, with grass, just grass to be honest. Certain forests have dense foliage, like ferns, orchids, saplings, sugar gliders, which I want to incorporate into this forest, but not right now. Then, I started incorporating the bark texture to the trees, adding a bit more color variation to their trunks. At the same time, I added some branches. After that, I detailed the canopies. Speaking of the canopies, their designs are a combination of these two Terraria tree styles, which I think fits best for the forest. I guess it has that oak canopy style, but it's just compressed and lodged onto a wooden pole. That was a lot of detail, and it seems that the forest looks a lot more clean with it. With that out of the way, I started overlaying each part of the artwork with color. Then, I started to incorporate the lighting into the trees. First, the canopies. Normally, tree canopies aren't just one cohesive blob, but a bunch of leaves clumped and connected together by some branches, with some gaps where light can pass through. But since this is Terraria, and I am lazy to add extra details, I choose to ignore my previous statement. Anyway, I incorporated some lighting onto the trunks, lighting them with a vibrant yellowish hue. Direct lighting will be heading towards this direction. The bushiness and lighting of these trees will be refined eventually, as some do look a bit too flat. Now let me mention this. The time of day in this artwork is between sunrise and noon. Shadows will be present, especially cast shadows from the trees, with some blocking the other trees from that sweet sunlight. I also made sure to add some shadows on the parts of the trees near the canopy. The foreground is mostly complete. Now it's time to deal with the background. I incorporated lighting onto the background foliage, changed a bit of the color transition deeper into the forest, to finally adding some distant trunks scattered throughout. These are not the main focus points of the artwork, so I don't really mind if they look a little bit lackluster or messy, but I want to at least incorporate it with the background properly. So a bit of a spin, and now the background looks complete. And it's not only that, as you can see, there's a bit more detail in the sky and on the ground. We've got some puffy clouds up here, and cast shadows down here, coming from the trees. Now there's just some things that we have to do left. And let me summarize them. 1. Atmospheric fog. The background and the foreground seem to blend in. As I've mentioned earlier, about depth, the further away something is, the more it gets incorporated into the sky. You can see depth portrayed in forests as well. At the same time, I was working on 2. The player. The player will basically be the default player in Terraria, looking up towards the massive living wood trees. For now, it will stare at the sky, questioning its life choices, as we move on to 3. Atmospheric fog, now fixed. And lastly, 4. Refinements and additions. This artwork showcases what the forest biome might look like, specifically in a forest setting, because that's the name of the biome, featuring the vibrant Terraria trees and the massive yet luscious living trees in the distance, with the player admiring them from afar. The adventure has just started. There's more to explore. This artwork will feature some of Terraria's most notable land generations, one of which being this open cave, tunnel, hill thing, and the other being a hill. This will be the transition to the next part of this Terraria series, where we will be illustrating the underground. The background of this artwork is hilly landscape with evergreens, uses art from the 3DS background. Let's start off with the sketch, the plan. While illustrating the form of the landscape, I planned on where certain elements of the artwork might be, like a flower field, this land generation, which I will call a tunnel beneath a hill from now on, some chasms dotted about, all inspired from Terraria's landscape. I also planned the location of certain creatures, which I probably should have done last time because I had a hard time incorporating the critters into the landscape. After that, I colored it in grayscale, using different values to display specific elements of the landscape and incorporate depth. Next thing I did was start incorporating the flower field. It will be covering this area over here. There will be 2 flower species in this field. Orange flowers, which I guess are tulips, and smaller yellow flowers. Basically, wildflowers. I also added more spots of interest around the artwork, like some mushrooms, trees dotted about, treasure, some slimes, and detailed the rest of the background. What's that? It's a bird. It's just a bird. A cloud bird. It's one of Terraria's rare clouds. After adding all of the necessary details, I overlaid it all with color. It looks way too vibrant though. Like neon-like. I'll eventually tone it all down, but for now, let's detail. First off, flower field. With a reference to guide me, I slowly detailed through the foliage below the flowers, eventually creeping in towards the hill with the tunnel. After dealing with that, I detailed the tunnel by adding foliage on the wall and flowers to the vines. I also detailed the ground, adding a bit more grassy texture to it. I continued this detail reaching towards the hill, and finally, the background at the back. Then, I extended the flower field into the hill. Now, this landscape looks way too vibrant, way too bright, so I added some cast shadows on the ground and foliage to the distant hills. For the cast shadows, these come from the clouds high above. The time set in this scene is midday. Then, as for the foliage, those iconic Terraria trees, a bit too far away for us to see the detail. And speaking of trees, the foreground seems to be lacking of them, so let's add some. As I was doing this, I was also adding a bit of details to the hill, caves and chasms, refined the clouds, and detailed the bird, the cloud one. Now, there's just a bit of refinements and additions left to deal with. some red cardinal and slime detail, additions of plants like the marigold and daybloom, incorporating some trees to the rest of the hill, and finishing it off with detailing the treasure from the tunnel beneath the hill. Now, it's complete. And there we have it, the first 3 artworks of our Illustrating the Terraria World series. The forest. 1. A spawn point, the start of a series. 2. A breathtaking view of the forest, the start of a journey. And 3. A vibrant and colorful view of the forest hills with mobs dotted about, the start of an exploration to the underground.